Good morning and welcome to another installment of Brookfield Zoo's Bringing the Zoo to You. My name is Lauren. I'm a lead animal care specialist here at Brookfield Zoo, and I'm here to introduce you to some of my tall friends. I've been keeping up with the Bringing the Zoo to You segments and have seen a lot of exciting, fast-moving animals. We're going to slow it down and stretch it out for you guys today with our reticulated giraffe group. So first I'd like to go ahead and just introduce you to the animals who are here right now. This tall guy right in front of me is named Potaka. Potaka is the tallest of our giraffes. He is a male and he'll be turning 7 years old in June. He was born here at Brookfield Zoo and he's topping right around, we think, about 16 feet tall right now. So he is the biggest boy in our herd. He's interested in the food, but I don't know if he's gonna... As you can see, their table manners are sometimes lacking. To his left is his mother, Jasiri, who's actually the shortest giraffe in our herd. Jasiri is a middle-aged female who has lived here at Brookfield Zoo since she was about 2 years old. As I said, she is Potaka's mother, and she is a very laid-back, relaxed kind of girl. She's eating here with animal care specialist Raquel, who has some of her favorite treats, which are a biscuit formulated for herbivores. Those are her absolute favorite. We finally have a brave one joining us here. On Potaka's right is Arnieta. Arnieta is another female. She was born here at Brookfield in January of 2007. She's lived here her whole life. And she usually is our big fan of the lettuce and the greens, but she seems a little bit curious. There we go. So she may not be ready to settle in yet. Giraffes are the tallest land mammal in the world, and they are native to Africa, mostly sub-Saharan Africa, through the savannas and the woodlands. Their primary diet consists of all things green, so leaves primarily, fruits, branches from trees. Here we refer to the branches as browse, meaning cuttings off of trees. And we have a great arrangement with our ComEd supplier to donate all the browse they cut from around our power lines. So in the summertime especially, when there's a lot of leafy greens available, the ComEd department will bring us all of the branches, and our giraffes are very happy to eat them as fast as we can hand them out. You'll see Jasiri there is enjoying a snack of some willow. Willow is one of the browse species that we feed regularly. They also enjoy mulberry, different types of maple, and they can pretty much strip a branch in minutes. That would take most species a lot longer, but they are specialized for eating leaves off of trees. You may notice Jasiri is not the longest tongued one we have, but perhaps she'll show us her tongue. There it is. So the giraffes have long tongues. Most people say between 18 and 20 inches. And they use those long tongues to wrap around the leaves and pull them off of the branches. They're a little bit specialized because a lot of the browse that they eat in the wild is from the acacia family and will have thorns. So those long tongues allow them to pull the leaves and avoid the thorns by wrapping and pulling. You may notice that that tongue is kind of a blackish purple color, and that is not an accident. That helps them keep from getting sunburned on their tongues as they stand with their tongues out for the majority of the day. I noticed in our goat segment earlier this week or last week that Paul was talking about ruminants and the structure of the digestive tract for a ruminant. Giraffes are also ruminants, meaning they have multi-chambered stomachs. So they do eat vegetation and they will chew it, swallow it, bring it back up in the form of cud and chew it some more. So you will see the giraffes ruminating in the same way you would see goats ruminating, where they may stand around looking very relaxed and chewing. That is kind of a restful state for them. They can sleep standing up or with their legs tucked under them, and so sometimes it's hard to tell if they're actually asleep or just relaxed. So Jasiri is our champion kale eater. In the summer season, you may see a lot of her out at our giraffe feeding experience, which opens up around Memorial Day every year. She has been known to be the best participant in our giraffe feeding experience, and she's a champion. She does not like the stems, so you may notice that she'll be dropping some of the stems back down on my head, and that is what we expect from her. So these giraffes are reticulated giraffes, which is one of the subspecies of giraffe that lives in Africa. Giraffes are considered vulnerable right now due to habitat loss and poaching, so it is important for us to learn about them and help conserve them in the wild. There you go. There are other subspecies of giraffes. She only likes the kale. She does not like the romaine. She's a very particular girl. Personality-wise, Jasiri is probably our most laid-back, calm giraffe. She takes most things in stride. She trains pretty well. She doesn't get spooked by things, and she's kind of the calm presence in the herd these days. If she wants to do things. The thing about giraffes is they do what they feel like doing, and we ask nicely and hope that they feel like participating. But the primary function is to eat and walk around and check things out. You may notice their height makes them adapted for eating from the tallest parts of the trees. So they can actually reach the browse up high that other species cannot, which gives them an advantage at reaching some of that leafy stuff that is left behind by everybody else. They do have the long legs and the long neck to help them reach all those things. And you notice their beautiful coat pattern, very spotted. Believe it or not, it does help camouflage them in the trees and the grass out on the African savanna. Different coat patterns will sometimes coordinate with different subspecies of giraffe. So reticulated giraffe tend to have a coat pattern similar to what you're seeing on these guys here. Other subspecies may have slightly different coloration or patterns. Potaka came over to eat with his mother. Potaka, being a young male, is pretty food motivated and very interested in training. So we do train the giraffes here at Brookfield Zoo to help participate in their care, as we do most animals in the zoo. These guys primarily will focus on some hoof work if we need to do any trimming of their feet, similar to a horse who's getting a farrier to work on them. And so that's pretty common. We also train them for voluntary blood draws so that when our veterinary staff needs to do annual checkups on them, they are accustomed to us working around their necks and drawing blood from their necks. We've done some other really great things. We've done dental radiographs where we've actually taken pictures of their teeth. Giraffes are sort of unique in that they don't have top teeth in front. They only have the lower teeth in front, and then they have a lot of molars running along the back. But, oh, Potaka's showing off his teeth. So those teeth in the back are used for grinding their food. And there you go. But it's very hard to get a look at them because they are so far back in their faces that it's hard to get them to open their mouths enough. So we've discovered that if we train them to hold still and have some x-rays or radiographs of their mouths, we were able to get a look at what the shape of the teeth is towards the back there. I think Potaka has a little piece of bark stuck between his teeth, just for extra decoration. So Jasiri, like I said, not a big lettuce fan, so she's gonna snub the lettuce. So we do have these three giraffes we've introduced. We also have another male. His name is Ato, and he's a young male who will be turning 5 in June. He came to us from the Fort Wayne Children's Zoo in Fort Wayne, Indiana, and he was brought in to be a breeding male for our herd. The hope is that he will breed with Arnieta, and then we will have a baby giraffe somewhere down the line. It is a long pregnancy for giraffes. They're pregnant for about 14.5 months. So a love connection does not mean an instant baby in the giraffe world. It often means that we cross our fingers and wait and wait and wait and see what happens. Ato was a little slower finishing his breakfast, so we gave him a little extra time to eat. So he's off finishing breakfast now while the rest of the herd gets out and warms up the yard for him. Giraffes do a really cool behavior that you may see out here, where they will drink from our water hole or investigate things on the ground, and they actually do that. Since they're so tall, it's hard for them to reach the ground. You may see them spread out their front legs kind of in a triangular fashion and then reach down in between. When your head is 16 feet above the ground, you do have to get a little creative with how you get down there and check some things out. Jasiri, as usual, our champion eater, is participating great. I see Arnieta and Potaka have gone out to just investigate the yard a little bit. So giraffes do live in herds, but what we find is they have kind of a loose social structure. So they live together for safety and somewhat for companionship, but they're kind of champions of the social distancing concept in that you very rarely will see them rubbing on each other or coming into close contact with each other. They sort of move around in a loose social structure. But obviously a group of giraffes in the wild would be safer than a single giraffe. They can all watch out for each other, and they can all watch out for predators. Predators in Africa would include lions, leopards, sometimes African painted dogs, and other carnivores that live in Africa. So being in a group and being able to see as far as they can, considering how tall they are, really gives them an advantage to seeing the dangers out on the savanna and staying safe as a group together. You sometimes will see groups of bachelor males or young males who have not found a herd to breed, and they will hang out together as well. Otherwise, you're looking primarily at females with their calves, their offspring, all living together in kind of a loose group. At birth, baby giraffes stand around 6 feet tall, meaning that from day one, many of them are taller than many of us, and then they just continue to grow from there. The really rapid growth occurs kind of between ages up to age 7 for males, and then they sort of become mature and they'll slow down their growth rate from that point on. Jasiri is a little on the shorter side for a giraffe, and yet somehow she gave birth to a very tall young man in Potaka. Do you want me to take some questions perhaps from some of our Facebook comments?
So how long are their necks?
How long are their necks? I'm going to be honest and say I've never measured the neck portion separately from the rest of it. The legs and the necks obviously make up the majority of a giraffe's body height. So for an animal like Jasiri, who's let's say 14 feet tall at most, I would say 2/3 of it to 3/4 of it anyway is head and neck, neck and legs. But I will be honest, I've never measured the actual length of a neck. If I stand next to it, I would say I'm 5'8" and her neck is a little shorter than I am. So let's say 4 to 5 feet. That's a guess though.
What are their horns for?
Great question. I forgot to mention that giraffes are uniquely decked out with these things we call ossicones. So they are not an antler like a deer. They don't drop those ossicones and grow them back. And they're sort of like a horn, but the difference is they're actually part of the skull structure of a giraffe. So if you were to look at a giraffe's skull, those ossicones would be there and be present from birth. They're folded in at birth and slightly flexible so that they can actually pass through the birth canal. But once they start to mature, they'll become erect and then really harden into a bony surface that is part of the skull structure. They use them to defend themselves. The males especially will do what we call necking, where they swing their heads up against each other to actually fight for females or territory. And they also, I've seen them use them almost as a tool to kind of grab onto things like high branches and maybe pull them down a little bit. But it is a very unique structure to giraffes, and their closest relative, which is the okapi, kind of the cousin of the giraffe, also has ossicones in a smaller scale.
How fast can they run?
I have seen 37 miles per hour listed as the giraffe sort of running speed. So they can move pretty quickly when they need to. And again, those long legs would help with that. So I would say 35 to 37 miles per hour is considered the top running speed for a giraffe.
Can you remind us again how they sleep?
Sleeping, yes. So giraffes, like horses and other hoofed animals, can sleep in either a standing position just by resting and closing their eyes, or what we'll see is they do what we kind of call a cush behavior, which you might see out of a camel or a llama, where they sort of fold their legs underneath them and sink down to the ground level in a little pile. Typically the head stays up even when they're in that cush behavior, but sometimes the youngsters especially will tuck their heads all the way around to the side and kind of rest it on their hip in a more full folded giraffe position. But yes, both standing and tucked down are positions that are commonly utilized by giraffe for resting. Nope.
So what else do they like to eat?
So here at the zoo, we feed them Lots and lots of greens, as you're seeing, lettuce, kale, any type of leafy green. They eat the leaves and the browse, as I said. They get a basic diet of a little bit of grain, which is kind of like a giraffe cereal, helps round out the nutrition. And then they also get fruits and vegetables as part of their daily diet. These biscuits that we talked about earlier that are made for herbivores are really a treat. They are not a basic building block of their diet, so we use them a lot for training or when we need a special occasion kind of food. But they are herbivores, so no meat, all vegetation.
How tall is the average giraffe?
The average giraffe, so the males are taller than the females. It's not just Potaka and Jasiri who are that way. That's typical. Average females are going to run you closer to about 13 or 14 feet. The males can get up 16 to 19 feet is the highest male that I've seen recorded.
How long are their tongues?
Their tongues are said to be between 18 and 20 inches long. And I think there's some variation on individuals. Arnieta has the longest tongue I've ever seen, and I don't know if she'll put it out for us. If we can get Jasiri out of the way. Arnieta is a big fan of her long tongue, and sometimes you may catch her in the summertime out in our yard. She will actually stick it outside of her mouth and spin it around and play with it, so that's a lot of fun to watch for. Sorry.
Can you tell us again how many giraffes are here and which ones are the males and which ones are the females?
Absolutely. So we do have 4 giraffes at Brookfield Zoo. The 2 girls are here on our right, Arnieta and Jasiri. And then on the left here is a male, Potaka. He is a non-reproductive male. He's actually a castrated male, which is sort of like neutering a dog or a gelding stallion. He's not recommended for breeding, so we were able to keep him here in his family group as a non-reproductive male. You would not typically have more than 1 reproductive male in a herd because bull giraffes do not want to live together when they are sexually mature. We do have a 4th giraffe who is not out here right now, and his name is Ato, and he is our breeding male, a young male turning 5 in June.
Can you adopt one of these giraffes?
I do believe we have animal adoption available for the giraffes. I know Arnieta has been adopted in the past, and I think Jasiri also for sure. But you can find that information on the zoo's website for all animal adoption packages.
What is a group of giraffes called?
Great question. So we sort of loosely refer to them as a herd here. The other correct term is a tower of giraffes, which is a fancy word, but that is specific to giraffes. We kind of use herd as a general term for groups of hoofstock overall, but giraffe specific, it would be a tower of giraffes.
Do giraffes make any noises?
That is a great question. Giraffes can make noises. They very rarely make noises, so you don't think of them as being a noisy animal. And they do some probably low rumbles that perhaps we can't even hear. That would be low enough for their own ears to pick up. It's called infrasound when you're communicating that way. But they are also capable of making an audible sound that our ears can hear, which would be either a rumble or a kind of growl. In really, really rare situations, a very upset giraffe can roar or bellow, which I have only ever heard once in my entire career. So typically they are not noisy, but they are capable of making sound.
How many teeth do they have?
I do not know the exact number of teeth. If we can find the answer, we will post it in the comments after the video. It's a great question, but I've not actually counted them myself.
What do they feel like?
They feel like, that's a great question too. So giraffes don't love to be touched, even by us, the keepers who have been working with them for a long time. So occasionally we can kind of touch the ends of their lips here. You can see all these pointy little whiskers. And those are prickly little whiskers, just like you'd find on any animal. And so that's the pointy end of a giraffe. The rest of their fur tends to be kind of dense and a little bit oily. Usually if you spend some time rubbing on a giraffe, you're going to have dirty hands afterwards. Oh, Arnieta. She's waiting so patiently.
What is the bump between their eyes?
The bump between their eyes is another part of the skull structure. As they age, it usually will get a little bit bigger. Some subspecies of giraffe actually have an extra set of ossicones as well. So sometimes people refer to them as the extra ossicone. Oh, you guys have eaten it all. But it is sort of just a bony part of their skull structure. And it helps with that whole necking, swinging, bumping into each other concept.
Do they have a good sense of smell?
They have a good sense of smell. I believe they do. They have a tendency to come right up and sniff things first. So just based on behavior, I would guess that their sense of smell is pretty acute. You can see their nostrils are fairly large, and they kind of open and close. Especially if a giraffe gets sort of excited, their nostrils will get very large and almost rounded. But the first thing they do when they're coming to check out us or a new toy or anything is put their face directly up to it and smell. So yes, that is a good indicator of a good sense of smell. Well, our giraffes have had enough of us because we've run out of treats, which is pretty common. So for all of you who are working or educating at home today, thank you so much for joining us as we are bringing the zoo to you. Please continue to support Brookfield Zoo. We appreciate all of your support. We look forward to seeing you again when the zoo opens back up.